which is allow. Brilliant. Here we are. So this is this presentation is about Blagrave. I was asked to talk about our funding priorities, our approach and our learning. And so I wanted to share some thoughts with you for the next 15 minutes, 10 minutes. Okay. Go on, Nicola, click. So Blagrave, what we do in essence is that we collaborate with partners. This is what we aim to achieve. We want to bring lasting change to the lives of young people. We invest in them as powerful forces for change, and we want to act on their right to be heard in pursuit of a fair and just society. That's our mission statement, really, and everything that we're doing is about that. So we are a youth-focused funder. We are a national funder, so we work nationally on a range of programmes. My role is as Regional Partnerships Manager, and I am based here, in fact, in Frome. That's where I happen to live, but I cover a broad region, which I'll talk about now. Okay, so I wanted to start off. I was going to dive into our history and some of the philosophy and some of the really interesting ethical questions that we're working on in our learning. And then I thought, nah, come on. What they want to know is about the money, don't they? So I thought I would start here with our funding, because it's important that you know the facts. So we have in the region, which is what we're calling the area, the geographical area where we fund service delivery work for young people. We fund in Berkshire, Hampshire, Sussex and Wiltshire. All our funding is for young people aged 16 plus, young adults. So we're talking 16 plus up to young adulthood. We don't have a defined sort of cut-off rate, and 16 is also not, it's just what we're saying is the older young people, young adults. We offer unrestricted long-term funding wherever possible. And the reason for that is that at a point in time, we started to hear more and more the concern from the sector that project funding was really limiting their ability to work with young people in the way they wanted to work, and that short-term funding was not allowing them to invest in the kind of relationships with young people that they needed to see real change. And we know that trying to run a youth organisation, stringing together lots of project grants is really tricky. So we're in the fortunate position that we're able to offer unrestricted funding, which means you do not need to nominate a project that you're going to spend the money on. We simply say, we love what you're doing and we think it's really important, so here is funding towards your work. Now, the shape of our funding is really evolving at the moment, and the programme this year and for the foreseeable in our new strategy that we're working to now is to have small grants for grassroots groups working in the poorest parts of the region where we fund. We really have done a lot of work on the young people that we want to support, that we want our funding to help. And we've identified who those young people are, and we're looking for ways in which to reach them, which means we're increasingly clear about some of those criteria. So we're looking for small grants for grassroots groups that are really working with young people in the poorest parts of the region, young people facing social injustice in their lives. Hand in hand in that, we have some larger strategic investments with core services across the region. Organisations you'll probably know that are providing key vital services, information and advice to young people frontline, working with some really key organisations there to make sure that young people's needs and rights are met. And alongside that, we also have occasionally some time-limited funding opportunities, and they can be on something specific, bringing forward a strategic theme for our work, and I'll talk more about one of those, Restock Youth, in a minute. This is just something I really wanted to point out to you, because many of you work with young people. We're running a grants programme now at the moment, which is live and actually closing at the start of next week, so it's urgent. It's called Challenge and Change, and I'd really love it if, as an action from today, you could just have a think about any young people you're working with that you think might benefit from this. This funding, as a result of some of our learning and the way we want to achieve our mission, we have made funding available directly for young people. So this funding is for young people directly. It's for young activists who are between the ages of 18 and 25, anywhere in England. We're offering them between £2,000 and £10,000. So in effect, that's a part-time stipend for a year, or a really chunky grant to take forward an activist piece of work if they have a passion born of their own lived experience to challenge injustice, whether that's through campaigning, whether that's through new models of work, having their voice heard. As I say, that is directly for young people, and it's very unusual in the funder world, as far as I'm aware, to be funding directly for young people in that way. So please do encourage those that you work with to make the most of that. Okay, so thinking about our grants to groups, which perhaps is why you came today, our funding criteria, what we're looking for here. As I said, we're looking for organisations that are working with the young people that we're here to serve. We've done a lot of work, as I say, thinking about who the young people are that we want to benefit. We don't want to put labels on young people, so we're not going to start coming up with checklists or describing them in negative terminology. But one thing I am clear about is that we're looking to support the poorest areas. We're looking for work that has impact for young people's lives, and that can be really, we don't, you know, we're not looking for some metric here of numbers on a chart. Or the question is, how do you know that your work is having impact for young people? How can you share that with us? And what role do young people have in that? We're looking for work that's intersectional in nature. And by that, I mean work that recognises that young people's identities don't exist in boxes. They're not a young refugee. They're not a young person with disabilities only. How do other intersectionalities, how do other aspects of social injustice affect them, and how do you understand that, and how do they feel how accessible do they feel your services are to them? And we're also looking for work that young people are leading and have an extremely active role in taking forward. Key ambition of ours is that young people have their voices heard, and we're looking for work that has young people in support of it. That might be that they are actually leading the work within your organisation. It could be that through our grant making, young people have demonstrated that they're in support of the work that you're doing. Because we run some grant making programs where young people are making the decisions, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so we have on our website an open outline proposal form, which you're welcome to fill in at any time. There are no time deadlines, it's open throughout the year. If you're applying for a smaller amount of funding, then we have the ability to make decisions on a monthly basis. Larger funding requires more due diligence, so that can take 2 to 3 months. And we have a programme of trustee meetings, which is our decision-making point. That can take longer. But for grassroots groups looking for small amounts of funding, we can take a decision relatively quickly. And as I say, there are no time deadlines, and it's on our website. You may have seen it. Now, alongside that, I wanted to talk about Restock Youth. This is a time-limited funding opportunity that we launched last year in the region. You may have seen it. It will be launching again this year, and it's funding for organisations in the region. It will be benefiting organisations in Wiltshire, so I hope you'll look out for it. And young people will be making the grant decisions on that programme. And so I'm going to be working with a group of young people to actually identify what the criteria are. And I know that youth leadership will be a major aspect of that, of their interest. So how are young people involved in the decision making in the organisations that they're looking to support? It's early days, so I don't know what the specific grant criteria are, but hopefully via Nicola, you'll get to hear about that, and I'll be keen to talk to you about it more. Okay, how am I doing for time? Just a few minutes. Thank you. I wanted to say a word about our approach and what that's meant for us, and perhaps then we could talk a bit about any thoughts that you have. I mean, as I say, we've spent some time thinking very carefully about the young people that we seek to support and what that means for us in terms of diversity, equity and inclusion, because we believe in upholding equity. We want to promote equality of opportunity and access, which has led us to think really carefully about us ourselves and what that means for us as a grant making trust. We're in an incredibly fortunate position because we are an independent trust. The money that we are fortunate to be able to invest and therefore make grants on, on the back of, is private funding from an individual. And so we have a lot of freedom. We're a charity, same as yourselves, and we're regulated by the Charity Commission. We have our own trustees who are ultimately the decision-making point within our organisation. We're not accountable to the wider. We don't have to fundraise, I suppose, is what I'm saying. And so as a result, we have a lot of freedom, and that's given us a lot of thought. And amongst the grant making world, there's been a lot of thought about, well, what does that freedom comes with a huge responsibility, and what does that mean for us in terms of making sure that the people that we seek to support are actually able to hold us accountable for our mission. And over the last 3 to 5 years, we've gone through quite a transformation within Blagrave. First of all, starting with our own governance. We were a relatively traditional funder with the original trustees of our founder, and it was a lawyer and an accountant, sort of very professional, very much of one class, all men, on our small board of trustees. And over that period, we've evolved to the point where we are a very, very diverse board. And of our board, just over half are young people. We have a huge range of experience and background on our board. And that has been a huge transformation for us, and a very, very different way of working, and has brought so much richness to our organisation. And over the last 2 to 3 years, the same process of thought has gone through in terms of our own staff team. What does that mean for the people who are actually making some of these decisions day to day, and interrelating with yourselves, with our partners? And now we have a larger staff team of 8, 3 of whom are young people working in key roles within that, and a very broad range of diversity and experience. But there's a lot more that we can do. We're not trying to evolve to a point where everyone within the team is young. We do recognise that, and young people have said that they want there to be a broad range of experience, and why would you not welcome experience? But we want young people's experience to be alongside ours, working together. So that is our way of working. Thank you, Nicola. One. Or is that the end? Thank you, that was the end. So that was really an attempt to tell you about our funding, and also just to talk about some of the wider sort of themes running through our work. And I'm very happy now to see if there are any questions, if that's okay, Nicola.
Absolutely, thanks, Tessa. I don't have anything in the chat, so if anyone does have any questions they'd like to ask.
Or comments, I'd be very interested to know what you think of what I've said, or just get some feedback, really.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to raise your hands and then unmute yourself. Kat.
Yeah, no, I was just listening and thinking that it sounded amazing. I love that you've got half of your board are young people. That's inspiring and makes me think we need to do more on that. But like, yeah, it sounds like, yeah, I was getting really excited when you were talking. So good one.
Oh, that's brilliant. Has anyone else here got working with young trustees?
Not yet. Part of why I wanted to be here, Tessa, was to see whether that kind of work is something that Blagrave fund, really. So we're very much in the kind of, we aspire to get there. The trustees are really on board, and now we just need a bit of capacity for someone to help us take those kind of first sort of steps towards that sort of stuff, really. So that it's nice that it's been raised, because that was my kind of question, really, about whether you support groups to kind of get started on that journey rather than already having established youth voice kind of processes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course we do. But in fact, there are, I mean, lots of things there. One of the things that one of the programs that we are working on, in fact, which I'm glad to be able to tell you about, I should have mentioned, is an initiative with other funders, National Lottery, Children in Need, and Esme Fairbairn Foundation, called the Listening Fund, which is specifically funding for youth leadership and listening to young people. And that will be opening later this year. That's a national programme. So that's something to keep an eye on. But certainly here in in the region, one of the things I would say is we're a founder funder of the Young Trustees movement, and I don't know if people are aware of them. That's a national organisation offering support to both to charities to bring on young people as trustees and to young people who want to be trustees. And they provide loads of free support. So actually, if that's a particular aspect of your work that you're interested to look into, I mean, you don't necessarily need a lot of money to do that because there's already support out there provided. So well worth looking at the Young Trustees movement, and I can send a link. Well, Nicola might know them, but I can send you details.
Thank you.
Great. I think we've got a couple of hands raised. So Emily, I saw your hand up first, and then we'll move to Carolyn.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry, my camera is having to be off because my Wi-Fi is playing up, so I do apologise. I work for a youth organisation. It's slightly different in that we provide advice and information and the opportunity for young people to report information on crime 100% anonymously for kind of aged 11 upwards. One of our interests is exploring how we can reach young people to remind them that this service is there, and predominantly for those that don't feel like they have the ability to go to the police for whatever reason. Could be intimidation, could be a number of different reasons. We do have a youth council who sits on our board nationally with representation from across all different counties. I suppose my question is more in line with, if we were to look at funding for a specific region where we know that there are problems and we know that there are young people who are struggling to come forward with that information, so it is holding them back, is that something that would be, obviously I'm not expecting you to say, yeah, you can have the money and here you go. I'm just saying I would rather have just a steering as to whether or not you think that's something that potentially would be considered.
Well, like you say, I mean, obviously, I'd need to know far more on that specific one. But just one thing I would say is, and this can be a really funny one to get your head around, is Blagrave, we don't offer project funding. So it's unrestricted funding, which means you don't need to nominate something specific. So like, you don't need to say, would you fund this? Or it's not. It's like, would we fund you as an organisation at all or not? It's just, is there a mission match with your organisation or not? Because if there isn't, do you see what I mean? I mean, that's not the case I have to say, that's not the case across the board. We have the luxury that sometimes there's a little bit of grey, because there are adult organisations out there, as I mean, some of our partners are organisations who support adults as well as young people. So not every single organisation that we partner with is entirely youth focused. I have to come clean about that. The majority are. There are some organisations who are partners that have a really significant strand of their work benefiting young people, and also work with their families, and also work with the wider community. And in which case we don't, so there we might restrict our funding to their work with young adults, but generally it's unrestricted funding.
Okay, anyway, thank you so much. Thank you.
Carolyn, do you have a question?
Hi, thank you very much. My question is around your definitions of the poorest areas. I don't think anybody would immediately think of Marlborough being a poorest area. In fact, many aspects of many areas in Wiltshire you might not think poorest areas. It's one of the reasons why we're very underfunded in many respects, particularly government funding. But obviously in any area you get your significant pockets of deprivation. And one of the reasons we're doing what we're doing is because within Marlborough there are significant pockets of deprivation, and it's the young people in those areas that we're particularly focused on in terms of trying to get them a consistent offer if you like, of activities and engagement and so forth. And certainly the model that we want to introduce will be one where we weren't thinking of at the trustee level, but at this sort of volunteer level, that the young people would be members of the community, and as members would be part and parcel of deciding what they wanted to do and how they wanted to do it, and the ongoing fundraising and community activities and so forth. But back to the poorest areas point, you know, that demonstration of the pockets of deprivation and the young people who want to help within it, how might that work within your definitions criteria?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Caroline. I was really mindful of that when I was saying it, actually. I was thinking, how does this sound? Because it's I totally appreciate the frustration that some of you guys feel here in Wiltshire about being labelled as very you know, advantaged areas. So I can completely understand the frustration. The truth of that is that it is about reaching young people who don't have the privilege of a supportive family, of a wider network around them, of a relatively wealthy community around that might be there, perhaps the business, through the business community or local volunteers, to pick up the slack. So we are looking for that understanding that we're benefiting young people who are living, who are facing real social challenges. And I don't want to start reeling off a list. I mean, I've talked about poorest areas. That's not hard and fast. Quite what we're talking about is young people who are not receiving support through other means, who really need the help. So yeah, it's as open to the complexities of real life as that. I know that's probably not helpful because you want sort of black and white, but it's not really like that.
No, that's fine. I understand that. I mean, what we're finding is often is that there are opportunities. It's about engagement. It's about young people from certain areas, certain families, and so forth, who really struggle to engage, even if the opportunities are theoretically there. But
I understand.
I get your point. Yeah, thank you.
There's something I would just like to say, because I'm worried I've missed it out from my presentation, what I said, which is that when I talked about impact and how we prioritise impact, we're looking for work that is long-term and transformative in nature for the young people concerned. So we are not likely to fund short-term, we don't tend to fund short-term interventions like awareness raising, or even a short-term intervention, say with a class or something like that. That's really not generally the sort of work we're supporting, because we believe in a holistic relationship-based relationship between young people, based on trust, I mean, between young people and yourselves as a trusted adult or supporter, and between you and us. That's what we're trying to model and give you the freedom to do, or we're trying to learn from you in the way you work. So we don't tend to fund short-term interventions, and we don't tend to fund kind of leisure time, and by that I mean just brilliant youth work, fantastic youth work, which we think is so important. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's just not what we are able to support. We're a relatively small funder, and so we are prioritising specific ways of working. So in terms of partnerships, we don't have many partners, and I mean probably 5 or 6 in Wiltshire. So we're not talking about lots and lots of support here, and our funding is relatively modest, I'm afraid. So I hope that's come across. Oh, I've just realised the time. Sorry, Nicola.
That's right. Thank you, Tessa. I mean, is there an opportunity, if people do have any questions, to give Blagrave a call? Do you have that?
Of course.
Yeah, and just discuss something. Yeah.
Absolutely, very keen to do that, and I'm available. So yeah, you can email me, or shall I? I'll put my email address in the chat, shall I?
Thank you, and we're happy to share afterwards along with the slides. And now I'll just hand over to my colleague Karen Hobbs, who will just give a brief overview of the current grant programmes that we have open at the moment.
Hello everybody, I'll just wait for Nicola to do some more slides for you. I think, you know, I've probably, people have seen this before, so I'll just go through it quite quickly. So let's go on to the first slide. So I always just remind people that as a foundation, we do give grants to groups, and also we have some programs for individuals, which Nicola manages, but we also are able to give some information and advice as well, alongside organisations like Community First and Wessex Community Action and Voluntary Action, Voluntary Action Swindon. We're also, because we're a community foundation, we also work with local donors to give to their community as well. So that's where our money comes from, that we're able to give out in grants and support to groups. And we also do some work around exploring need in our community. So we do have a needs analysis that we commissioned that has information about the different areas around Wiltshire. So that might be something that you can use for grant applications, both to us and to other people. It will give you some specific information on sort of areas of disadvantage and deprivation around the county. You want to go forward? So our main programme is our Community Grants programme. That supports people and communities in need in Wiltshire and Swindon. It's for projects and activities that improve people's lives. So again, we're focusing very much on those individuals and communities that can't access other services for some reason, largely to do with, you know, financial issues, but there may be other reasons why people are finding things difficult. Our grants can be for anything from 1 to 3 years. We have a minimum of about £750 a year up to £5,000 a year for up to 3 years. You can apply to us for capital sums, for capital items and projects, but that would be up to a maximum of £5,000 just for the one grant, rather than over the 3 years. Okay, should we move forward? Yeah. So our priorities are grassroots and small to medium-sized organisations. So, you know, local organisations working in their local neighbourhoods and areas. Again, as I mentioned before, people living on low incomes, you know, where finances are sort of excluding them from support. And we're particularly at the moment focused on projects and activities that do the following: either address the impact of the pandemic, support children and young people, prevent or alleviate poor mental health, tackle poverty and inequality. So although there are sort of themes at the moment, we are happy to consider applications that fall outside this, but obviously we would need to know what the need is that you've identified, how you know it's there, how you've engaged with the people that you think have that need, and how you know that what you're going to do is going to meet that need, obviously, in a way that's meaningful to those people. You can apply for continuing work that you're already doing. You can apply for a new activity that you want to do, or project. And that includes any sort of reasonable costs around your sort of core or running costs, project and activity costs. And like I said before, capital costs, basically buildings and equipment. But if you are applying for an amount towards a larger project, then we'd need to know that you've got sort of the majority of the rest of the funds ready to go if it's a larger project, as our grants are only up to £5,000 for capital projects. And you must be in a position to start spending the grant within 6 months of when it's awarded. So, you know, our grant periods are sort of 12 months at a time. So you need to, you know, have a good plan in place to know that you're going to be able to spend the money that's been awarded in that reasonable time. Want to move forward? So we can fund constituted, voluntary or community organisations. Don't necessarily need to be a registered charity, but obviously we do fund registered charities. And we can fund not-for-profit companies, including community interest companies, but that needs to be operating very similarly to a charity, in the sense that the majority of the directors have to receive no payment for from the company for the work that they do, so essentially working as volunteers in a not-for-profit company. You can only hold one community grant at a time, so you can't apply for another grant while you're still spending an existing grant. And organisations either need to be local or regional, so i.e. based in Wiltshire or Swindon or in the south or southwest of England. If you're based in the south or southwest, the beneficiaries must live in Wiltshire or Swindon. You can't apply for work that's outside Wiltshire or Swindon. You can be a branch of a national organisation, but you must have your own local management committee in Wiltshire or Swindon, your own constitution and your own bank account. Do you want to move forward? And the things that we require you to have in place, so your organisation must have an active voluntary management committee with at least 3 people, and those 3 people can't be related to each other in any way, or in a long-term relationship or living at the same address. Must be 3 independent people. And then you need to have a bank account with 2 signatories. You need to have less than 12 months in running costs in your unrestricted reserves. We would need to see sort of financial records or accounts, a financial plan for the current financial year. That we found that quite helpful during our COVID grant, so we've kept that one going, so we can see exactly where our grant would fit within your financial plan for the year. We need to see a recent bank statement, your constitution. We're also talking to groups about safeguarding inequalities policies at the moment. If you don't have one or both of those in place, we can discuss that with you. We can signpost you to further advice and information. But they are 2 areas that we think are really, really important in terms of our due diligence to make sure that groups are operating safely and fairly and inclusively. And if you are a new organisation and you haven't got a lot of those things in place, you may be able to apply under an umbrella organisation. So if you can find another charitable organisation that's prepared to support you and to manage the grant with you, then you may be able to do an application in that way. Do you want to move forward? Just a few of the things that we don't fund. So our community grants can't be used for individuals, to pay to individuals or families. It's only going to groups for activities and support that they provide. This is quite an important one. We don't fund activities that duplicate an existing service. So it's really important in an application to think through who else is doing something similar in your area, and why is what you do necessary, and why is it perhaps different to what they do, or how it complements what they do. So we will be looking at that in our assessment of grant applications. We can't fund one-off or sponsored events, advancement of religion, medical research, animal welfare, or party political activities. We've mentioned individuals already. We don't fund statutory bodies, so we can't fund schools, we can't fund parish councils or health institutions. It does need to be a charity. I want to go forward. So that's our community grants programme. Again, I would just say, if you are unsure about any aspects of the eligibility, it's all on our website. But if you want to have a chat with us about a specific application, then that's absolutely fine, because we'd rather sort of let you know at an early stage whether something is likely to go forward or not. Save you lots of time with an application form. We do run programmes for other organisations that want to give to their communities. So we do run some programmes with Wessex Water. At the moment, we have the Environment Fund open. It's for groups based in their area, so it doesn't include Swindon and a few surrounding areas of Swindon, but they're looking for projects that are working in communities to improve local biodiversity, or to create some sort of positive impact on the local environment for local people. They're particularly focused on, you know, things that involve communities, that and that share learning with people about the environment. And as you would imagine, they are very keen about reduction in water use, improving environmental sustainability and improvements in local biodiversity. So again, just if you've got a project that you want to do with people that involves positive environmental impact, do let us know. Closing date is the end of May, 27th of May. For that one, do you want to go on to the next one? The other fund that we run with Wessex Water is a community fund. Again, it doesn't cover Swindon and some surrounding areas, but very similar to our community grants programme. They're sort of wanting to give grants to groups that are aiming to improve the lives of local people, again, those most in need of support. They're particularly focused on sort of supporting people around finances, debt, you know, financial sustainability, resilient communities, or all of that sort of thing. So it's very much about bringing people together, supporting people who are, you know, experiencing, you know, difficulties, particularly financial or rural isolation. Do you want to move forward? Have we got more? Yes. So I don't know, Nicola, did you want to say something about these, as they're your main, you're the main person?
Yeah. Thanks, Karen. Yeah, and just to draw your attention to the grants that we do actually offer individuals. So we have 3 different grant programmes that's designed to support children and young people's continued education and learning, and future employment as well. So one grant scheme we want to highlight is our vocational grants. We're open all year round for applications. Individuals can apply for grants of up to £1,000 to support them undertaking any vocational course, qualification, training or apprenticeships. We aren't prescriptive about what people can apply for. We ask you to tell us what they need, and we will consider an application. Like our community grants programmes that Karen's just spoke about, they are targeted. And so we target these grants at low-income families, and in order to be eligible, they need to be in receipt of a means-tested benefit. Like I said, we're open all year round, and encourage you to share it amongst any families or young people that you are supporting, and get them to give us a call or drop us an email to discuss their grant application. A new fund that we just launched about 6 weeks ago is a Southwest Enterprise Fund. Again, we're open all year round. And this is to support young people who are starting their own business, or have been trading for less than 2 years, and grants of up to £2,000 for that one as well. Yeah, so just get in contact with us to discuss any grant applications for those. And then I'll just finish off if you like, Karen. It's just the end for us. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we do support the sector in Wiltshire and Swindon with a range of events, workshops and meetings. So my colleague Margaret runs network meetings throughout the year. There is a Swindon Connecting People network, a Wiltshire Connecting People network, and a youth network. If you're interested in joining any of those, do drop us a line. We have workshops taking place as well. Our next workshop is a better grant applications. We also have ones around funding strategy and understanding the need. And then we've got our Meet the Funder monthly webinars. All bookings can be made via our Eventbrite page, and we'll also send the links out via email after today. So I don't know if anyone has any questions for us about either our individual grants for children and young people, or our community grants programme. We're happy to take those. I think there's some chat as well missed. But yes, if you want to raise your hand or anything, that's it. Don't know if anyone's got anything at all. No? Oh, Tessa.
That's really interesting. Thanks, guys. I was wondering, Nicola, with the enterprise grants, which sound brilliant, amazing, are you working with Unlimited on that? Because that's quite similar to their funding, isn't it?
No, we're not. So this fund has come about through a donor. He is a self-made businessman, and he had only become as successful as he had been because he was actually given a loan from a friend many years ago. And so now he wants to replicate that across the Southwest. So we are delivering grants in Wiltshire and Swindon region, and then my colleagues in the other community foundation in Dorset, Cornwall, Somerset, Gloucester are delivering in their own areas. Yeah, so he's really keen to support any sort of new innovation ideas, business ideas from young people in the area.
And would that support self, you know, oh yes, it would be for self-employment, young people who want to set up their own business. Is there business support built in? Do they receive advice on their business?
There isn't advice on their business as such, but they're quite keen to create a network of young people who have been awarded the grants so they can share experiences amongst each other as well. But as it's new, we've only done 4 grants so far, so those networks aren't quite up and running yet. But definitely we have signposts available to sort of the Southwest business hubs and things like that, where you can get that business support through them. Great. Well, if there isn't any questions, I'd just like to thank Tessa from Blagrave Trust coming along today and telling us more about your programme and schemes that you have running there. It's really great for you joining us today. Thank you for everyone that came along. As I said, we will be emailing you out links to the slide after the event as well. So thank you all.